anybody on the bench should have been a prosecutor and should have been, at least for a certain length of time, a public defender, a defense attorney, private defense attorney, or whatever, contracted legal defender, because they are, like I said, different lanes.
My name is Monica Caffaratti. I'm a local attorney here in Reno, Nevada, practicing family law. Today I have with me Henry Sotelo, who is running for Reno Municipal Court, Department 4.
Bingo.
Hi, Henry. How are you?
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate this. This is exciting to be able to do this.
Well, thank you for allowing us to use your office and inviting me to interview you.
Great. And like I said, my painting's right here. And my wife bought me this when we first got the room, and she'll be very happy to see that I got some
yes.
acknowledgement.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah.
Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
So, I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, and I've been practicing law in Washoe County, Northern Nevada, really, because I've done some work outside of Washoe County too, a lot of work, for 30 years. Passed the bar in 1987 and been working here ever since, various capacities. Also right now what I'm doing, what I've been doing for 20 years is been teaching at TMCC first as just an adjunct, part-time, 1 or 2 classes. And after a few years, I was able to take over the program, and I run the whole program now at TMCC. It's a paralegal program, also a pre-law program. A 2-year AAS, yes, for folks that may be interested in going into law school later. A lot of paralegals do, and a lot of paralegals don't. They just like the job as paralegal. But I've been doing that for a long time too. So it's been a great career for me to have that balance of being an educator, which I do love and enjoy, and it's been inspirational to me. And then also being a practicing lawyer during the day and teaching at night. It was great. Well, we used to do a lot of that, a lot of it online now, but. Yeah. So I've been practicing for the 30 years, and mostly in criminal law, really.
Okay.
But I'd say
that was my
80% of my work, 85% has been criminal law. I've tried other areas, and they're fun. It's interesting to learn new areas. And being a lawyer, you got to be open to that. But criminal law has been really my bread and butter, where my passion lies. And in that area of criminal law, I've been practicing as a prosecutor, in the district attorney's office for a few years. And in fact, Mills Lane hired me.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of proud of that, because Mills, I learned a lot from Mills, and that guy.
When he presents his case, you will not talk. When you present your case, he will not talk. When I talk, nobody talks. Those are the rules. That's the way it's going to be.
Will do.
If not, I'll bounce your butt right out of here.
There's nobody else like him. They broke the mold, right?
Yeah. Definitely
So it was great.
A big name here in Northern Nevada.
It was great to work for him. I got to see him in real life working, and then even as a judge, when he got elected as a judge, I was still a district attorney, and I practiced in front of him as a judge. And then also, I've worked as a city attorney prosecutor, which was great. That's a different jurisdiction. The jurisdiction I'm in now, Reno Municipal Court.
Okay.
And I've done judge pro tem work. So I practiced also when I was finally left the city attorney's office. I opened up my own private practice and did criminal law, and I practiced a lot in Reno Municipal Court. I was able to do pro tem work also, substitute judging, and in that court, and it was great education there too.
So when did you leave the prosecutor's office and start your own firm, and then how did you become a pro tem judge through that, and then how many cases or how many did you hear?
Good question. So when I left the city, it was in 2008. I was there 10 years, working for Patricia Lynch. She hired me, and when she was ready to leave, I left right before she was ready to leave. I thought it was a good time to go. Opened my private practice then, and at that time, what you got to do is they got to swear you in. And really, as long as you have a few years under your belt, there's a minimum of, I think, about 5 years of practice in the community and live in the city of Reno. They'll swear you in. But at that time, they were actually doing trainings for pro tems. Judge Howard, who was formerly a judge in Department 4, the court I'm running for, and also Judge Van Winkle did some trainings, and I got some trainings in there. And they told you, we're lawyers and we know the process, but it's like you're only looking at it through the lens of your lane, right? Your windshield, so to speak. And so when you go and you become a judge, even a judge pro tem, the substitute judge, there are all kinds of things that, as an advocate, you're not paying attention to, but as a member of the judiciary, you've got to really be aware of, and they showed us that little nuts and bolts part, and it was really good. And so that's how I got the little training on that, and I started doing the work there. And for 3 or 4 years, until I got the legal defender contract with Reno Municipal Court, I was doing that, and it was a nice little niche for me to do that. They don't pay you a lot of money. It's a part-time thing, but it was great experience. I got to see the bench from behind the bench and how different it is and how different you have to be. And that's what kind of got me in the idea of that I wouldn't mind being on the bench. Because before I was like, I love being an advocate.
Right.
I'm very passionate when I'm up there, and you got to have a different demeanor when you're a judge. But as an advocate, there are certain rules you got to abide by. But it's kind of wide open,
right.
How you can be very, very intense, very passionate. And so I enjoyed that part, even as a prosecutor and as a criminal defense attorney. Wasn't sure I was going to like being confined,
right.
so to speak, in a judicial position. But that really showed me that, you can still have a personality and still be a good judge. And that's when I started thinking about running for office at that time. And then at that time, after 4 years of practicing, I got that legal defender contract, 2012.
Okay, and I was going to ask you a little bit about that, if you could talk about that. And I know that you do some work in the specialty courts. Is that all tied together?
So the chicken came before the egg in this case. I got the LD contract, the legal defender contract. So Reno Municipal Court doesn't have its own public defender system that's a county employee or a city employee. Instead, what they do is they hire for contract attorneys that have experience in the area, that have worked in that area a lot, criminal defense or prosecution, that have practiced in Reno Municipal Court for quite a while. They award those contracts, and they're yearly renewable contracts. And so you're assigned cases.
Okay.
They'll you have a private. All of us are in private practice. They assign you cases. You know which days you got to show up. We all work cohesively together as a team, back each other up. We're not a law firm, so to speak, but we work together as an informal law firm. And you're appointed all these cases, and it could be anything on a misdemeanor level. Traffic case, well, not necessarily traffic cases, reckless driving, careless driving, that kind of thing. No insurance, that kind of carries severe penalties for misdemeanor charges, up through domestic batteries, first and second DUIs, stalking.
Okay, that's good to know. I didn't realize that the municipal level provided a legal defender.
They do.
So is this just a matter of if someone finds themselves before the municipal court, just ask to have one appointed?
They can. You usually have to have a criteria, twofold criteria. One, that you are at risk of going to jail, be incarcerated. Okay, that's the biggest one. The second is that you do meet the financial standard. Okay, so someone that can afford, the court looks at a financial sheet they get from the potential client and see that they can afford their own private attorney, they won't assign a legal defender. And also if it's a crime, like I said, a traffic or a very minor trespassing, there's no jail time involved. They're not going to assign a legal defender. As it is, we get a lot of cases, and it's growing. It's just it keeps developing into more and more as Reno gets larger. More people have moved here in the last 10 years, right, Monica?
Yeah,
a lot of people.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we're getting a lot more work. So it's added a couple more positions. Actually, we've asked for and added a couple more positions. Very helpful.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at with legal defender. I will tell you so folks understand, because some people don't know. When I've been out there talking to people about jurisdictions, we have so many jurisdictions. It even confuses attorneys. I've been to events and I've talked, and they go, "Oh, where you working?" And I tell them, they go, "Oh yeah, that's the one that has small claims." Right? I go, "No, we're next door. We don't have small claims, thank God." So I'll tell you, but so we are in the city limits of Reno. Any misdemeanor charges that are committed within the city limits of Reno, and that includes traffic cases, which can be considered misdemeanors, which will be changing soon. As you know, legislature changed that. Traffic cases are not going to be criminal cases anymore. They're going to be called infractions, not punishable by any kind of possible jail time, only fines.
Okay.
So we're talking misdemeanors that are punishable up to 6 months in jail, Par Boulevard, and or $1,000 fine with some fees attached. But that's our jurisdictional limit. City limits of Reno, and those two criteria, the jail time maximum and maximum fine. So if you go across the hallway, Reno Justice Court, they could do gross misdemeanors, they do felony, preliminary hearings. They deal with the more serious crimes, but they also will deal their own misdemeanors
there's like a threshold
in the county. So outside city
That was my
limits,
next question. We're
then
on
in
the
the
same
county.
page here.
So those two big circles, the teachers always one circle's inside. We're the circle inside. But
Right.
trust me,
But it's all Washoe County.
it used to be smaller
Okay.
when I first started for the city attorney, but now it's grown larger and larger. So we're
Right.
encompassing as we annex more area
Okay.
from Washoe County.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. And so that was my question so Reno's obviously in Washoe County.
Absolutely.
And so it's the lower level
Yes,
crimes that are within the city.
exactly.
They don't go out to the county though.
No,
Okay,
no.
so,
Sheriff's Department and the county court's still with those.
okay,
Reno Justice Court, Sparks Justice Court, right. And just
Okay.
like that, also Sparks Muni Court has its own city court within the boundaries of the county also, Washoe County.
yeah, I can see how it can get confusing.
It's very
Yeah.
confusing to lawyers, and it's,
And the public, it
and
must
the
be
public,
very confusing.
very lost.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about the specialty courts? What are they? How do they
Oh, yeah.
help people? And
So, specialty court / therapeutic courts, that's what we kind of call them, because they're dealing with finding out core issues and dealing with those core issues to alleviate symptomatic behavior that results in criminal behavior. So let me try to define that, parse that up a little bit. So when you deal with a core issue, past historical personal trauma, whether it be from a background in family, how you were raised, or maybe you somehow got in trouble, hurt, or attacked, or whatever the reason, mental health issues that are core issues, and people treat them by utilizing controlled substance and or alcohol as self-medication. And a lot of times, the abuse of those substances many times results in criminal behavior, right? Your batteries, your domestic batteries, your simple batteries, your, DUIs, a good example, right? Because either you're under the influence of alcohol or use of drugs, and you're driving, you should be on the road. And that could be caused because of your self-medicating. So not everybody's doing that. Some people just make mistakes, right? They don't need the help. But many people in our courts coming at that level have core issues that need to be dealt with, and if they don't get treated somehow or some way or addressed, they will result in further criminal behavior, which can result in a increasing behavior problem that could result them going across the hallway to felony court, right? District court, dealing with the felonies. So we are at in a good position to catch people, so to speak, when they're first starting to get involved with the criminal justice system in a negative way.
what's the success rate of that?
So we're looking at between 30 and 40%.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good, and I know that doesn't sound great, but when you're talking, I always use this ratio. Out of 10 people, you can help steer 3 or 4 out of that lineup of 10. You are taking a big bite out of criminal behavior. Some courts will have more positive results, but it depends on the court. Like for instance, in our jurisdiction alone, we have 4, in the city of Reno, we have 4 major courts that deal with the therapeutic aspect, specialty court aspect, okay? And the model is basically similar across the board, what kind of court it is. There's similar ways to deal with the results or try to get to results, but you're dealing with different populations, so to speak. Now, Veterans Court is one court. I helped Judge Shelley O'Neill brought me in from ground up, and I helped create that court with her and grow that court. And in fact, I had that court this last afternoon before we met today.
Okay, great.
So that's a different cohort, right? Population. So then compare that to our Fresh Start DUI Fresh Start Court, which I've also worked in and also helped grow from its initial beginnings. They deal with the general population that are just getting in trouble that are not veterans, okay? Then there's a third court, it's called Co-occurring Disorder Court. Now that is the mothership of all of our courts that was created by Dorothy Nash Holmes years back, I would say at least a decade, that deals with co-occurring disorder means a mental health diagnosis coupled with substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs. That criteria has to be there. You can see that's a different population. It is. And that's a very intense court, and you're dealing with a population that needs a lot of hands-on work. So it's a different court because you go veterans, they've been trained. They're very, very dedicated, and when you get them in a track or a system or with rules, they do very well. So that court is very focused on those folks, and you can see how it goes. And then finally, there's the community court, and that's the court that the Department 4, which I'm running for, will be my court.
Okay.
Now, community court, you can imagine, that's what they called, in parentheses, homeless court.
Okay.
So you can see the variation on the spectrum of the population you're dealing with.
Right.
And so folks that are homeless, houseless, or shelterless, unsheltered, they're going to be a little bit different kind of way to deal than even with the 3 other courts.
Yeah.
They're in the area by themselves. And that's a little more challenging area. People that don't have resources, don't have access to resources, usually have severe to moderate to minor mental health issues.
Right.
A lot of that population does. That's why they're kind of just out there with no true north helping them, right?
Right.
And so our job is to try to bring them in, which is more difficult because you don't want to just jail them and jail them and jail them. That's useless.
That's not.
We've done
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
We know that that's not the way we're going to go back, no matter what people say.
Right.
I know there's some blowback right now, but not to the aspect that to the respect that people think that we're going to go back to just putting people in jail, because that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have to get hands-on with folks, and you're dealing with them. So that court's a much different court. So you can see the variation of the different impacts the different courts will have on different populations.
So you've been a prosecutor and a legal defender.
I have.
What will you take from each of those positions, and how will you use that as judge of Department 4, especially with the shelterless community?
Thank you for asking that. So I will tell you, and it's going to be really bold of me to say this, but that's the kind of person I am. I will say that every judge should have all aspects. Anybody on the bench should have been a prosecutor and should have been, at least for a certain length of time, a public defender, a defense attorney, private defense attorney, or whatever, contracted legal defender, because they are, like I said, different lanes.
Right.
And sometimes you don't see everybody else's lane from your lane. And so it's important. And I think it's important that someone has the pro tem experience before they get on the bench as a judge. So, and that, to answer your question, I will absolutely understand the prosecution's point of view on why they're seeking what they seek at times. And some people may not agree with what they're trying to do, but I understand it. I don't always have to agree with it.
Right.
Same thing with the legal defender and their position and their arguments and their advocacy for their client. May not always agree with it, but I'd understand it. And so I think that really helps widen my vision, from a 90 to a 180 and to a 360, frankly. I really understand the job. When I'm working now, and I go, having been a prosecutor for over a decade, 10 to 15 years of experience, and I'm dealing with a prosecutor, sometimes I'm passionate and I don't agree with what they want, but I do understand, and I understand their thought process, and I can explain that to the client and deal with it in a proper manner. So I think it's very helpful for any member of the bench to have that very various experience from a 360 view. And the pro tem obviously is a good experience because you just, like I explained earlier, very different point of view than everybody else's. Not advocacy, but trying to figure out what is best for the community, best for the person, whether or not how much accountability they must bear, and then what's in the future, the family, impact on family, all these things that judges have to take into perspective.
Right.
Their financial situation, whether or not we have resources available to help them. So all of that is very important. So absolutely, I'm going to bring it all my experience, 30 years, just still surprises me, to that bench and serving the 6-year term.
So I know you touched a little bit in a bunch of different areas why you want to be judge and why you're running for this department.
Yes.
Can you expand on that? Because being a judge, it's a big burden. Like you were just describing, you have to take the points of view in and then make a decision on these people's lives, and it'll impact them. And so what drew you to that and wanting that sort of responsibility? So,
the pro tem work helped open my eyes. This is before, when I was pro temping, there was only Judge Nash Holmes opened with the co-occurring disorder court. She was beginning that, or had been just a few years developing it. So I wasn't quite familiar with what that was. So when I was pro temping, I was just doing it as a bread and butter criminal justice court, right? You come in, there's pleas or there's a trial, and you have to be a judge on those aspects. It was very simple, straightforward. It's become more complicated now because of the therapeutic courts. However, even with the pro tem, I was not completely satisfied whether or not I wanted to be on the bench. Again, I enjoyed the freedom, because there's a certain amount of freedom. The ethical judicial ethical codes are very strict, and they restrict your life and what you can do in a lot of ways. As an advocate, you're free to do what you want, right? More or less. But what changed for me were the therapeutic courts. When we started really expanding those, I saw that as a very, very positive way to serve on the bench. Because otherwise, and I saw this as a prosecutor and to a certain extent as a legal defender, it's that's right. It's the one. It's the revolving door. Thank you. I always call it circular door, but the revolving door. And it was almost like not useless enterprise, but a burnout enterprise. Because Muni Court, we get thousands of cases a year, thousands and thousands, and it's easy to get burned out. And just start not caring. Right. And so when I started seeing how these therapeutic courts work, and what they can do and impact, and how we can cull away a lot of people from this, and you see how they react over a period of time, the 12 to 18 months we have them, right, in the programs. It's a wonderful experience to see that, so positive. And it really renewed my sense of how the justice court, how the justice system, how due process can really be, life can be breathed into those words, right? Right. Very important for me, due process, very key words, important, I'm sure, like for you. That's what separates us from most countries in the world. Right. The concept of due process. Right. So I saw that and I said, that's what I want to do. I really want to do that. 2016, I ran campaign, and I ran against Judge O'Neill, who eventually put me on her staff. I ran against two others, and there was four of us in a primary, four-way primary. Oh, wow. Didn't make it through. Judge O'Neill eventually, obviously got on the bench, and which she's done a fantastic job creating that vets court and working hard on that. And it's a beautiful court. It's a wonderful court. So no regrets there. But I learned a lot because I was kind of a dark horse in that race anyway. I knew that. I wanted to see how it looked from the inside. Got excited when I tell people that I got my master's degree in politics and that, right? Yeah. And that's how when I ran. And my push at that time, because we still only had the COD court, was we need more of these therapeutic courts. We need more in our jurisdiction because it can work really well at this level. And there was none of the others.
What is COD?
Co-occurring disorder. Mental health diagnosis coupled with substance abuse issues.
And that's interesting. That leads me to my next question, because I was going to ask, is there the opportunity for you as the judge to expand these courts? Because I didn't realize in 2016 when you were running there was only one. Yeah. I like how they're all parsed out, so it really is attentive to the needs of the individual groups. Absolutely. So is there an opportunity that you can expand, and do you have any ideas on that?
Yes, I do, and thank you. That's a good question. So Department 4, that's why to me Department 4 is very exciting, because that community court, it's still growing, it's still developing and evolving, because you're trying to deal with a population that can be very difficult to even get to show up to court, and then to keep returning over a period of time on their own. The other three departments, it's a little easier because those folks have a little more resources. They're housed. Right. So that's the Department 4 Community Court is a more difficult court to deal with. So to me, it's a prime opportunity to grow that court to more than what it is. And also, I think that it's now in the late stages of its first part of its growth. There was just get it going. Right. Judge Riggs did a great job of getting it going, just forcing it through. And I'm going to be honest with you, there was a lot of pushback to try to do this court. They used to say, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? I mean, it's, not punish, cite people into the court, and then not punish them and put them in jail, but instead give them some community service and then offer them a variety of resources, on a weekly basis and expect them to return. Right. It's a difficult concept to sell people, but she pushed it through. And I don't know if anybody else could have done that. I'll be honest with you. Have you met her? Yeah, she's a force of nature. Okay, so it was perfect. It was perfect timing coupled with a person, and this is what she had in her head, and she created it. So I'm thankful for her to do that. And I will tell you, I was also one of the initially trained legal defenders on that court. So I got to see it growing from very small, I wouldn't say nothing, but very small, modest beginnings to now what it is, and it's a lot more busier, a lot busier, a lot more resources available. Still having a hard time herding those folks in, getting them into court all the time. It's problematic, which is a challenge. But now it's in a stage where you need to have someone that's very, how do I say, ambitious, aggressive, passionate, and that's who I am.
Right.
I'm going to push that court to the next level. And that would mean getting nonprofit financing, not just grants, but opening a 501(c).
Okay.
And you can do that, and that's actually advised at a certain point for a lot of these courts to get a 501(c) going. So you have a pool of money that you can depend on constantly. And one of my pushes in my 2016 campaign was do a nonprofit and government cooperation and partnerships. And so that's, Hopes, all of those kind of places. There's a lot of folks that want to donate money to these kind of things that they could see that can make real action and do real movement in our community.
Right.
Because we see the problem. When I go door knocking and talk to voters or anybody else, they ask about these courts and I talk to them about the community court. They're very, very excited about what we're doing. A lot of people don't know about it because and I've been talking about it for 8 years at least, 10 years. But still a lot of people don't know about it. But when they hear about it, they're always excited. And across the political spectrum, which we know nowadays is very separated.
Right.
Doesn't matter if I'm knocking on an R door or an independent door or a D door. It's all when I hear what the
unifier.
Everybody loves it for different reasons. A lot of for the best reasons. It's the right thing to do. Yeah. But also secondarily, very important, it makes economic sense.
Right.
Not statistically, but what we've learned through the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, of which I've been trained over the last decade through, and most of us have in Reno Municipal Court, is that for every dollar you spend, you're saving $4 of some change.
Wow.
Yes. So it seems expensive because people say, well, it sounds expensive. Well, we get grants.
Right.
There's a lot of nonprofits that want to give this kind of money. We actually have gotten federal government money, big grant money in our courts to keep going because we're doing a good job. We get audited. When you take money, you get audited, right? That's the deal.
Right.
And you got to prove yourself. And we've been able to do that over the last 8 years with our courts. And so they give us more and more money. But you don't want to just depend on that. It goes back and forth. So you want to get another pool of money. And that's my big push to do that. And I want to expand our capacity to treat more people because we're limited in our capacity to deal with people on a weekly basis. It meets every week on a Wednesday morning. I want to expand that capacity. I want to expand our reach to the population.
So what services, because I think this is a great topic that'll be really informative to the public, especially since you have spoken to voters from, from all sides.
Yes.
And this seems to be a unifying issue. What exactly, and you stated that you're in the programs in the later stages of the first stage.
Yes.
So what resources are they providing now to homeless or unsheltered people?
So,
and then I guess you had talked about the nonprofit bringing that in money. What other services could you provide with that money?
So the services we provide are pretty good right now. We can expand them. We need a lot more practitioners in there because we tapped out a lot of folks because a lot of people had to leave because of COVID. When things shut down, the court completely shut down, as we know, whole year.
Yeah.
No court, whole year, only Zoom court, right? And you can't do that kind of court in Zoom. Right. You got to be hands-on with those folks. We had to shut down for a year, which put us behind. But basically, we've got a lot of mental health providers. We've got health providers showing up every week. We've got providers that can provide transitionary housing, which used to be easier. We know that's a core issue for just getting people started in trying to grow into a lifestyle that is cohesive with our community. And so we have those kind of folks. We have VA people showing up that can tie veterans that are just homeless, that haven't found their way to a court otherwise, into the VA system. Most of them have benefits. Yeah. All they have to know is how and where and why, right? And so those are the kind of things you provide with the providers. Again, we're lacking the bodies there because a lot of people left the community. Yeah. And we're trying to bring them back. Yeah. And so what I would do is I would make sure if there's more providers we can do, overlapping providers we can provide in those areas, major areas, but also a steady source of income to provide those resources, to provide substantial assistance for people, provide ability to, get rides, to get bus passes, all small things like that. Provide funds so people can get their IDs,
Right.
things like that, clothing. I mean, it's really we're providing an open forum for a variety of things, medical necessities and just the spectrum.
Just kind of take it step by step.
And they lose a lot of their stuff anyway, so you got to try to help them with that. So that's what I would be pushing. That's what that partnership.
Okay, great. So what do you want the voters to know about you?
I'm the first of my family to go to college and graduate. I'm the first of my family to go to law school and in this professional manner. My parents grew up poor, both of them, on border town of Texas, South Texas, and our family, my grandfathers brought their family to the East Bay because during the war they were building troop carriers and ships, and they became shipbuilders, union shipbuilders, and that's how they provided for their family. So we grew from modest background to where I'm at. And I'm not saying I'm the be-all, but our whole family rose as our family worked hard and rose together in that area during that era because our family worked so hard and sacrificed so hard. And I'm a first-generation Mexican-American. Okay. And so I'm proud of that heritage. I'm proud of the fact that we've all rose in our family has risen from where they were. So I'm very proud of what I've done, and I'm very proud of my whole family and what our family's accomplished. Everything I've done, I've had to work hard for. Coming to this community with just myself, going to college, I've established myself in this community, and this is truly my home. I love this area. I want to give back to this area because it's created for me a great life and lifestyle and career. I've raised my daughter here. She went to UNR. My son is 16 years old. He's going to McQueen High School. He's a sophomore this next year. And so this is my community. This is where I really want to contribute. And this part of my career will be my third act. I like to call it that. It'll be my third act. It'll be a way to contribute and to go out on a positive note. Not that my career hasn't been positive, but it's a different type of creation and a different type of something I can offer this community.
And I love the way you describe your family rising together. And I think that really fits into your description of what you want to be as a judge and to help people rise through the specialty courts and be able to help them.
Exactly.
I think that fits really nicely.
That has helped, and it gives me the empathy to understand. If people are trying, you got to help them try.
Right.
Not everybody's going to be ready, and not everybody's going to be in a position to go into these specialty courts. But those that want to and can, I want to be that person that's going to help them. Not just me, of course. There's going to be a whole team that's just an incredible team that I was trained with. But yes, I want to be there for that. I want to be part of that.
Okay. And if the voters want to talk to you or have any questions, do they have a way to contact you?
Absolutely. So, Soteloforjudge.com. Soteloforjudge.com. Also, they can get a hold of me at henrysotelolaw.com, and my numbers are all there. I don't want to complicate it with too many numbers, but those two areas, they can go to those two areas. They're going to find out a lot about me and what I've done as a lawyer, and also as a person in the community. I've been on a lot of boards. I'm still on a lot of boards, and they can find out a lot about me there. My 20 plus years of contributing to the community, not just in my profession, but volunteer work, because I knew I needed to get deep roots in this community to understand the problems and how to address those problems. So I'm ready to go in Department 4 when time comes in November. So I'm asking everybody to vote for me November 8th this year. General election. Thank you very much.
All right. Or who is running for Reno Municipal. Oh my God.
I know.
Who's
It's
running
a
for
it's a mouthful.
Reno